All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're zooming in from. And welcome to the Creative Confidence series. As we give folks a few moments to join, we'd love for you to answer this prompt on the screen in the chat. So what complex problem are you working on right now? Again, as we give everyone a few moments to join, what complex problem are you working on right now? All right, see some answers coming in. Cool. We see future roles, modernizing electrical grids, world hunger, medicine. Great. Keep them coming. All right. So we will get started. So my name is Sam, and I'm a senior learning experience designer on the content and production team at IDEO U. And I'm happy to be joined here by Jen, who's a product director at IDEO U, and Kate, who's an executive design director at IDEO, and the instructor of our newest course, Creative Thinking for Complex Problem Solving. So we're here to talk about this brand new course and answer any questions that you might have about the course and what it's like to learn with IDEO U. So many of you submitted questions already, and we'll be covering those shortly. But if you haven't had the chance to submit your questions yet, you can do so throughout this conversation by typing them in the chat. We'll get to as many as we can in the next 30 minutes. So to kick it off, I'll turn it over to Jen, a product director at IDEO U, who's going to give a quick overview about IDEO U and how our courses work.
Thanks, Sam. Very happy to be here. So if you're not aware of IDEO U, we are IDEO's online school. We offer courses that are designed to equip you with the skills, mindsets, and tools to help you stay relevant and adaptive in our modern world. We offer 3 different types of online learning experiences: self-paced, cohort, and certificate programs. Today, we'll be focusing on our newest cohort course that Sam just mentioned, which is a 5-week-long course, and it requires approximately 4 hours of coursework per week. What's great about the cohort experience is that while you're learning alongside other learners from all over the world, you still have the flexibility to go through the course at the pace that fits your schedule within those 5 weeks. There are no mandatory live components, so you don't have to worry about logging in at a specific time or date. At the same time, it is very interactive. You'll have access to a teaching team, which is composed of experts in the field who are there to support you, and there will be plenty of opportunities to connect with your fellow learners, including optional live community conversations each week. I'd say the cohort format is the best of both worlds. It has the flexibility, but also that collaborative component. If you have any questions about our course experience, feel free to post them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. So of course, today we're here to talk about our newest course, and we're so lucky to have Kate here, who is one of our instructors on that newest course. So welcome, Kate. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Kate. I've been with IDEO for about 10 years, almost 10, and worked in so many different fields, really kind of growing my interest in complexity over time. I started as a computer scientist and became kind of a software designer who got more curious about technology over time and started to see technology is really about people and this type of system that can integrate into bigger systems. And with systems, you can really understand and hold a lot of complexity in a way that makes sense and you can work with it. So I've been really grateful for my experience to be able to work across everything from helping patients and medical researchers in the study of rare diseases, helping farmers create tools for learning and training with other farmers, creating a school bus that goes to Mars for middle school students, many, many different topics. And that's what's really great about the skill set is that, as we're seeing with the chat, like no matter what you apply it to, these tools and methods can really make a difference of untangling that complexity and bringing really fresh creative perspective to try something new and unexpected and build more of a future that we want to be in.
Awesome. So in a nutshell, what is this course really about?
This course is about, well, first of all, I think seeing complexity in a new way. So really about welcoming complexity. Often we're very intimidated by complexity or see it as a negative thing. And it's neither good or bad. It can be used for bad, it can be used for good. But it's kind of, it surrounds us, and it's like the forces of change are increasing complexity and the speed of complexity everywhere. So I don't know about you, but my first reaction is like to stop breathing. And this course is like, no, don't hold your breath. Like, actually, let's welcome complexity and start to see that in that there's a lot of possibilities, and we can start to gather and explore and try on these possibilities to build confidence in that complexity. We can't just like plan the perfect solution. We really need to try things and see what works, and get experiments out into the real world to learn from our ideas, and learn especially from people involving many different people. And we're actually using complexity by involving more people as a way to navigate complexity and to really come out with something that is not just like solves a slice of the problem, but really holistically considers the whole problem and moves everything into a new possibility space. So this course is really more about recognizing the questions and like ways of moving through complexity than it is about like tying a nice bow around a solution. But it will give you a lot of tools to kind of start to see what works and why, and that it is definitely a journey through complexity through which you change, your team changes, and your whole perspective on a topic will likely shift as well.
Awesome. So you mentioned that learners will learn tools, mindsets, and other ways to work through complexity. What else will they learn in this course, or what will they be able to walk away with?
I think really the value of play and experimentation. So play being what is thought of as like kind of a simplification of things, or like a thing that kids do, or a thing that's fun. And like for after work, we're treating play totally differently. Play is how we rewrite the rules, and we can kind of create these shifts in mindset or like shifts in behavior and try things on in a whole new way. So it allows us to kind of see complexity as fun and joyful, because if a game, for example, is too easy, it's not fun, right? Like complexity is actually what can make things fun. And play is like a form of experimentation that we can bring a little bit of rigor to and a lot of intentionality, and start to really make sense of things and start to see, oh, we tried this whole new pattern that doesn't exist anywhere else. And now we're suddenly seeing indicators of change in like a good way. And we're starting to see a way through this really tricky problem.
Awesome. So we had a webcast with your co-instructor, Michelle Lee, last week about the power of play and a couple themes that keep coming up around how to bring play to problem solving while still balancing with rigor needed to address the complex challenges. Something we are asked about a lot in regards to this course. So as someone with a degree in computer science and a background in software design, how do you see play being expansive or helpful in the way you work and approach problems?
Yeah, one way to like bring rigor into play is that we're not just like looking at the first ideas that come to mind. We're really using play to push all the parameters of those ideas. And so we can get so expansive in that way that it's helping us see not just like 6 inches out, but we're seeing like miles and miles, and you can use that to look really far into the future, right? There's no way to go to the future, but play can help us really, like improv kind of, help us really get very specific about a certain group of people, a certain context, a certain problem they're facing in the future, and build that like same level of empathy, or really try on an idea in a whole other context that doesn't exist today. So I think play is ultimately our capacity to imagine, and also to not be so precious about what works. We really are just kind of like trying different stuff. And you have to really let go of the judgment, the like constant judgment of, is this good enough? Is this correct? And play allows you to suspend that belief and really use your other senses to just kind of intuitively move through something. And it really is like a a different set of muscles that once you develop can quite complement that logic, reason, and rigor that you can't do without either, right? It's really how they can kind of counterbalance each other and work together is what's going to move solutions forward.
Absolutely. So to talk about this more, as an interaction designer, you must sometimes come across times when it's difficult to justify play. So say when there are restrictions on time and resources, or the culture just may not seem to support creative thinking in this way. So I guess another way of asking this is, how would you manage play skeptics as you work through this?
Yeah. I see play as kind of like a dial, right? Like you can make something more or less playful. It doesn't need to be like all out costumes and props. And so finding like kind of gauging the audience of like what level can playfulness be brought into this group, and thinking about like, okay, maybe the usual process is like very analytical, and what we want to do is just try different combinations of things. So something like a mashup exercise where we take like kind of like a collage, different random components, and we just use that power of combination and say like, here's a little formula, put a few things together and see what emerges. And just by combining random things can be a form of play that helps push the thinking a little bit. So there's so many ways to lighten it and to kind of like let go of the word play or the label play and just talk about like, what is it that we're doing and why? So that people can start to see, oh, actually, I felt playful in that moment, but they can ascribe that emotion. And as facilitators of creative thinking and complex problem solving, being able to use these methods and tools without saying, now this is play, it's really like the act of facilitating and bringing people through something. And once they've done it, now they can reflect and say, oh, I felt playful. And that could start to shift a culture over time.
Great. And then finally, before we open up questions to the audience, who is this course really for? So what types of learners would really benefit from this?
Yes, I think as I was sharing at the beginning, it's really anyone dealing with complexity in some way. And what is complexity? It is when you cannot really contain the whole problem or solutions in your head, or like the solving world hunger challenge, right? Like, where do you even begin on that, right? You start one place and there's problems another place. There's people up and down, upstream and downstream, being affected in your complex problem somehow. It's not simply a puzzle that you can solve, right? Or a product that you could simply buy, like a dishwasher. So I think complexity is when you are kind of like in a mental loop with the problem itself and really trying to understand, what does progress look like? How do I make sense of where I'm going in this? How do I bring in enough perspectives? Because I alone can't hold the whole thing. And so it's really that feeling between you and the problem, that orientation towards the problem, and the number of factors at play that are creating complexity. We also believe that this course is going to be useful, even if you don't have a complex problem now, you probably will in the future, right? So thinking about these tools to look outside the box and kind of like look for new inspiration and tools to incorporate into your practice. And maybe you're actually hungry for a more meaningful challenge, and you want to like make a shift in your career role, for example. This could help you actually look for, what complex problems do I want to go after, or how can I bring more play and imagination to my organization to shift the bigger system or organization.
Awesome. All right. So we'll transition to the main Q&A portion of this. So please go ahead and submit your questions in the chat. And while these are coming in, we'll start with a question that was submitted ahead of time by Sean. And this is a two-part question. And Jen, I'm going to have you answer this one. So how does this course differ from other courses that the IDEO U network has? And specifically, how does it differ from leading complex projects?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that question. I would say that this course is actually quite different from leading complex project. Complex project is more about, I guess at a very high level, a project management course, and it's more about how to get to a very specific end destination, navigating complexities of leading teams within a given project, versus this course, I would say, is working within complexity as like a much larger topic area. You don't necessarily have the end destination in sight, but it's more about problem solving within a complex problem. The project might not even be defined yet. That might come later down the road as you work through the complexity. I think that leading complex projects is focused on giving you the skills you need to lead kind of through that project rather than teaching the traditional project management tools, though. It does kind of dive deep onto how to balance the logic and intuition to guide your team. And again, this new course that we're doing is kind of could be seen as like almost like the prequel to that, right? But it kind of surrounds everything that we do, whereas leading complex project is one very specific problem with an end site in mind.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Jen. All right, Kate, next question is for you. So we have a learner who is hoping for a one-sentence description of how you define or approach complexity. So what would be the very high-level summary of how complexity is approached in this course?
Define complexity, I would say that there are multiple visible and invisible drivers that are things out in the world causing like actions to take place that create kind of a entangled web of cause and effect. And as an observer on the outside, you can't simply change one input and control one output. That path between the inputs and outputs is a black box. And so complexity is simply what emerges from those simple, individually simple drivers or parameters. In terms of the approach to complexity, I would say it's really about creating a hypothesis, trying it on through play, rigor, and a whole bunch of tools, and seeing what works in the real world in order to iterate and improve your hypothesis.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate.
Or many hypotheses that you are going to kind of refine it and both get a better understanding of the problem space and the solution space.
Great. Hopefully that answers the question. Next question we have is for Jen. So we have a learner that says, hi, I'm looking for an online platform or community where I can engage in continuous discussions beyond the course's timeline. Is this part of the offering?
Yeah, thanks for that question. What we usually see a lot of learners do is they create personal connections within the course, and they might take those relationships outside of the course. In addition to that, we do have our LinkedIn alumni community, which all of our learners are invited to after finishing the courses, where we have a lot of active discussions, as well as we can post announcements and stuff like that there. So that's a good way to stay engaged with the IDEO U team as well. And in addition, we have our regular Creative Confidence webcasts that we highly recommend that you attend, and you can find all of that information on our website.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Okay, so we have a couple questions. Also, I guess one more for Jen or potentially me, but what is the difference between this course and the designing strategy course?
That's a great question as well. I will say, similarly to what I mentioned regarding the difference between this and our leading complex projects, is that the designing strategy course is really walking you through a process that will help you kind of create and take action on a strategy for your business. So it's a very specific focus on your business strategy, where again, this new course is more broad and focuses on complexity as a whole. I'm curious, Sam, if you have anything else that you would add to that, though.
No, I think that's a great answer. And the designing strategy course could be a great potential partner course for this, but this course is more broad than just specifically about strategy. Okay, next question. We have a couple questions about AI coming in. And I think, Kate, if you want to take the first pass at this, and then we can finish this one off. But my complex problem is related to AI. and how to prepare my org or myself for this next generation of AI, would this course be right for me as I think about this?
Yes, I think this course, we don't specifically talk about AI, but in the way that it is broadly applicable, yes. And specifically on AI, I think a lot of organizations right now are looking to kind of plug in AI as a form of automation into a workflow to say, here's a task that was done by a person, now it's going to be done by a machine. And I think the course in seeing complexity through new lenses may help you think about looking upstream and downstream, many ways people are involved, talking with people for different perspectives, and probably finding out it's not so simple as that like one-to-one replacement. What we've seen work really well is kind of this creation of a feedback loop with AI, right? Because it's not perfect. It's also non-deterministic. And so that means it doesn't create a predictable outcome, which is to say, thinking about creating feedback loops, like is setting up a system within a workflow. And that's like one way that you could use the toolkits of complexity to recognize like, oh, AI, what type of a solution is it for this problem? Maybe it's not as easy as it thinks. Maybe I'm seeing some signs of oversimplification, and we really need to like think differently about how to make this approach. And actually, we really want to keep a human in the loop. So that relationship between human and AI is something you could explore in that solution space. But the course will help you use the tools to solve problems like that, but it will not be anything specific to AI.
Great, thank you. All right, Kate, I have another one for you. So how does this course translate or contribute to a learner's professional growth in a much broader sense?
I think one thing about professional growth is working with more variables, right? Like you take a single task or role that you can do really, really well, and then now you start to do that in more complex or dynamic environments or under more time pressure, or you start to manage other people. This course, I've talked a lot about complexity in general, but we're really looking at complexity through a human lens as well. Practicing human-centered design, we're constantly thinking about people. And so thinking about what are the implications for others, I think that's a really useful way to, in your career growth as well, like step into a manager role or a leader who manages managers, and being able to see a more bird's eye view of the complexity you're within, like the organizational complexity, the partners or suppliers you might work with, and to really quite broaden your view with a lot of kind of like very tactical tools that you could support somebody with and like kind of recognize the type of problem they're working on to be able to give support, or to simply show like you're continuing to develop your tools that you're using to apply to problems, and you're not like a one-trick pony, but that you have like so many things that you could bring, so many ways of thinking critically about a problem and like really pushing on creative solutions.
Awesome. All right, Kate, I've got another one for you if you're ready. So we have from Heather, I'd love to hear about the balance of play and exploring play to unpack complexity alongside the logic, frameworks, and rationalizing. I lack the latter. Exploring and play, I have more experience in. Can you unpack the logic and tools used in this side of the course?
Yes. Almost always we're talking about play and logic or rigor going hand in hand. So we're looking for within the play, how are we bringing out the rigor side of it? And within the rigor, how are we bringing out play? We're trying to look at like not just exhaustive analysis, but really reframing rigor and logic as being about kind of deliberate intentionality. So we create a lot of frameworks for how do you make sense of like all the possibilities, where should I start? And we have kind of through frameworks and through kind of the guidance in the course, steps that you can follow to make consistent progress. So you're not left in the kind of ambiguous world of play to like go play and then you'll have solutions. It's not like that. It's go play, move forward, the emotions and intuitive understanding of the problem. And now we're going to help you keep progressing through frameworks and really tangible methods that you can use to build confidence in the sense that you're making progress, like you can measure that you're making progress on the challenge.
Great. And more on this concept of measuring progress, some of the methods that are used. We have a learner who's wondering if you could give an example of a tool that you'd use to deconstruct complexity.
Yes. Let me think of a good example. Okay, I'll give one that's a little bit non-obvious. Like when your first approach to complexity might be like mapping complexity in some way, but I actually want to think about what we do with that complexity, right? It's like one thing to kind of analyze the problem, but how do we deconstruct complexity looking towards the solutions? One tool for that is boundary concepts. So boundary concepts are really about thinking about the ranges of the problem. Every problem can be made bigger or smaller. And so you have to be very intentional about choosing that scope and you're kind of choosing the complexity. Boundary concepts are going to be like an expression of the solution space that bounds the problem, like the north, east, south, and west of the problem. And you're looking at the like factors that play into that, right? So maybe I want to think about trying to give an example here. It's a little hard to make up on the spot, but maybe I want to think about the future of vehicles, and I want to think about connected vehicles, electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, and shared vehicles. Those could be my boundaries, and I'm going to create a concept that like pushes each space that I can use as a research stimuli or a prototype in order to help me understand these lenses on complexity. So what is it about a future in which people are sharing vehicles? Like if we really went deep into understanding that future, when do people share vehicles? Why do they do it? And now we see this like slice into complexity that we can use solutions to better understand the problem we're facing now. So I love boundary concepts because it's like a really rigorous kind of process of elimination that you can like test everything you care about and really start to see what doesn't work in order to build confidence about what does.
Great. Thank you so much, Kate. All right. So we have time for one last question. And I see one in the chat that would be great. So Kate, for you, what was your favorite lesson in making the course?
Yes, good question. I think one that I really loved was about futuring. And futuring is really the way we're talking about it is how do you go research the future, but in the present moment? How do you go find people who are representative of little pockets of the future and really stepping into their perspectives, their stories, to see that the future is what we create of it, and it is like these possibilities we bring forward, and especially so many organizations are in a position to help shape the future or little pockets of many possible futures, and really seeing the future customer or the future stakeholder who embodies some aspect of the future and the fact that we can talk to them right now. So it's kind of like a form of time travel, and we use some play time travel metaphors that I think are a pretty unique way of looking at that space.
Great. All right, so this brings us to the end of our Q&A session. Jen and Kate, thank you so much, and thank you all so much for attending. Just a reminder that we'll send the recording to all folks who have registered, so you will have a link to this if needed, and then if you're interested in learning more about the course, Creative Thinking for Complex Problem Solving, please visit our website, idou.com/creative thinking. And as a thank you for attending, we've also included a 20% off coupon that you can use for the course. So you can redeem at checkout with code Creative Thinking 20. Great. Thank you all so much. And hope to see you in the course.